Right, hey guys, how we doing? Back into the video from Seth the Programmer. Today we've got Naruto versus Saitama. Everything has changed. It's weird. It's like an hour, so there's going to be discussion here, and I think there needs to be, because even in my personal opinion, my personal professional opinion as an expert power scaler that is right at about everything, um, even with Baryon mode and Sage mode and everything else that Naruto's got, within like Boruto, I still feel like Saitama's got this, man. He's just so fast and so strong and just, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I need it explaining to me. We'll see what Seth has to say.
It is said that Saitama is an endgame character that basically is in the New Game Plus playthrough of his story, being strong enough to fight the strongest in his series, but being pitted against foes from beginning to end. On my channel, I've gone over Saitama against Goku, Saitama against Gojo, and two characters given some of the strongest accolades in fiction. These accolades, however, tend to be exaggerated when it comes to almost any of them, as we've explored in great detail on this channel. In One Punch Man, Saitama in the manga run went into an intense, enraged battle against a divinely amped martial artist named Cosmic Garo.
Oh yeah, that was something else. That was insane.
A battle that had Saitama pushed to new levels of strength and showed the most insane things we've seen in the series to date, making his battle against even the world-ending Lord Boros seem like nothing. Naruto is considered a uniquely powerful shonen protagonist that has reached the end of his story, and unlike the ninja that are in One Punch Man, Naruto had to overcome an entire world of ninja that did nothing but hone themselves to compete against ninja almost in the hundreds of thousands in terms of number.
Well, yeah, it's like that way of life, isn't it? Like that they are ninja living in a world of ninjas. Like you've got to be a ninja.
Where it was the standard. On top of this, they are given a unique energy known as chakra, inherited from celestial entities that give them subsequently unique and overpowered abilities and mutations that allow them to take down most other battle shonen and crossverse pretty decisively. Naruto goes a step beyond this. Not only is he in a world with far more competitive super shinobi than One Punch Man is, Naruto too receives a divine and godlike amp from a celestial being known as the Sage of Six Paths.
Okay, yeah.
Naruto not only receives this divine shinobi power and surpasses his predecessors, but also faces many similar world-ending threats, with one being Toneri, who was going to destroy the entire planet Earth after slicing the moon in half, and was then going to hurl this moon at Earth so hard it would either explode or destroy all life on it, with Naruto using a hint of his true power then beating him in one punch, just like Saitama beats Boros. Naruto also possesses many demonic entities within himself known as Bijou and their energies, one of which, the Nine Tails, individually had the power to eradicate all life off the planet. Due to his scalings to beings such as Kaguya, the endgame boss of Naruto Shippuden, and his many scalings upwards facing off against the pseudo-godlike entities known as the Otsutsuki clan, Naruto reaches ridiculous heights for many modern battle shonen. In Naruto, the series is very unique in the sense that the characters have to find a way to outsmart and take advantage of their opponent's openings in quick succession, with the slightest mistake at the highest level being immediate death. In essence, any slight confusion you can give your opponent or delay is almost like a superpower. For instance, the Six Paths of Pain are a relatively strong group of shinobi, but one-on-one, they are not so scary to an elite shinobi. But in a pack, with their strange myriad of abilities, it's almost like having to solve a puzzle mid-fight while fighting their gang off and trying to figure out what would even work against them to begin with.
Yeah, because it's not just that though, is it? It's not like all their individual abilities are pretty damn powerful, but it's the fact that they share eyesight as well, so each of them knows exactly when they're being attacked from a completely different angle. That was the advantage of the Six Paths of Pain.
Many shinobi within this world will just ignore the physical confrontation with you entirely and slam your psyche with a form of mind hacks or manipulation called genjutsu. Even lesser shinobi can transport a galaxy into your mind space, but stronger ones such as Itachi Uchiha can create an almost higher dimensional space that he can manipulate all of the time and space of at the speed of light to whatever whim he desires within your brain.
Yeah, like he made his girlfriend think that she lived the happiest life ever and then died happy because she thought she got married and had kids.
Speed and knowledge of how to deal with these techniques were always
And that was like instantaneous.
very important. But as the story goes on, we learn of the nature of shinobi and the energies that empower them to become super ninjas to begin with these large stations of energy becoming the bijou mentioned earlier. These bijou would bring the sense of power into the story, with Naruto basically acquiring all of them, or at least fractions of all of them, and acquiring the strongest bijou and then pieces of all the others. These bijou put together are basically super weapons and a massive planetary rivaling bomb of power and raw energy that celestial beings would then use to consume so they can surpass the limitations of the universe itself. This is later elaborated and shown in the Boruto series, more specifically with a character named Shibai. While Naruto is nowhere near that level of a god, such as Shibai, he still possesses some of that data that would be consumed to do such a thing. And this has huge consequences and amplifies his shinobi abilities to a divine level, with him even being able to siphon energy from the very planet itself and have such a massive excess of power that the very spatial curvature of the planet itself becomes distorted from Naruto's sheer day-to-day presence on it. Even Kakashi, when he looked at Naruto in just his six-path state in Shippuden, let alone when he was an adult, said, "Naruto, you already surpassed the Hokage a long time ago. What even is your goal now?" This massive battery that Naruto possesses, as well as a celestial entity unlocking his potential, in a sense per se, gives him some serious stats that many shonen and even battle comics in general struggle to really deal with. Even Dragon Ball would take Goku far into his Z journey before being able to confront a full-power Naruto, as I elaborated in this video here.
God,
with
yeah.
some arguing he might not be able to do it until Dragon Ball Super, which we'll get into later. This divine power called Six Paths allows Naruto to far surpass his full Kyuubi Chakra mode state, using natural powers absorbed called Sage Mode to amplify his powers even further. In terms of speed, Naruto, even in his incomplete Kyuubi Chakra state, which Kurama calls basically a fraction of his power, Naruto can zip around the version 2 Raikage, so much so that you can calculate the actual distance Naruto traveled in comparison, needing anywhere from 3 to 72 times the speed of the Raikage in his fastest state to accomplish this. While that's heavily debatable and the calcs go back and forth, Naruto then gets the full form of Kyuubi Chakra mode. The first state to the second is basically the difference between Naruto having to use all his remaining energy to just open the mouth of a bijou and rip some rods out of its body, to Naruto slamming 5 bijou on their neck at the same time, WWE style, without actually trying to hurt them or even going all out. Saying it makes him over 5 times in chakra volume or combat stats may really be an understatement. Then Naruto masters his chakra mode even further, as the initial link that let him do that feat earlier was actually imperfect, fighting off guys that could react to his full form while giving thousands of shinobi the power to tank continent nuking attacks from the strongest guys in the series and then avoid them at the same time. Guys who can easily react to the Raikage and then get turbo amped were now getting reacted to by KCM1 Naruto, who can barely keep his eyes open because he's so tired. With Sage Mode on top of this, his stats may multiply even further.
By how much, though? How do you work this out?
Some will argue that Sage Mode is a bit akin to a curse mark, which was more so prevalent in earlier Naruto or early Shippuden. Others will lowball it due to the way it's described. If you say that Sage Mode is only 1/3 of your chakra being Senjutsu, then added on, it's not too significant. But if it's more akin to a curse mark, as suggested by Jugo, Senjutsu Susanoo Sasuke, and the Orochimaru gang in general, then Naruto may get around 10 times stronger, if not more, in Sage Mode. This is even backed up in the Power Filler series, where Sage Naruto can basically curb stomp a Four Tails version of himself, with Kakashi stating that a
We're using filler for examples as well, I don't like it.
2 or 3 Tails Naruto has probably over 100 times his chakra, while at base he usually has 4 times.
I'm not a fan of, like, if we were to assume, you know what I mean? I know it's fictional, but, like, when you're doing this stuff, it's like, let's assume that this transformation that, like, you know, these other people have works the same here. It's like, no. And then it's like,
To fight a guy that could already fight him in this state, Madara Uchiha, plus the 10 tails, which is all the bees you put together, and his Renegon eyes amplifying his reaction speed, plus a god tree that shot out of the planet arguably faster than lightning speeds that eclipsed the entire horizon to the point that the energy required to actually do this may take more than it would to blow up an entire country. It gets really absurd as Kishimoto seems to power creep the series. Later in the video I'll describe some higher speed scaling, but for now, that is the general idea. With many data books and guidebooks supporting the consensus that most top modern shinobi in Shippuden start to reach around the speed of light in short distance combat speeds, while Naruto surpasses their chakra volume by an absolutely absurd degree that he amps all his stats with, that he probably surpasses their speeds and powers dozens upon dozens of times over if he really wanted to in a maxed out burst. For Naruto's attack power, normally I would skim the details as I feel as though I've gone into pretty extensive depth over the years and I've made my case pretty ubiquitous throughout the fandom. However, as time has gone on, a lot of newer and more casual fans are still pretty alien to what Naruto should actually be capable of, and why the Naruto Shippuden and Boruto series have some pretty good stopping power for a Shonen Jump battle manga compared to most others.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Naruto's got some really freaking amazing, like, feats, especially in Boruto, like, barrier mode and all that is really freaking, like, impressive. But when you see what Saitama does, like, so casually as well, if he was to put in effort and try, whoa.
So not only will I have to establish a case for why this video in itself is even interesting, as most people think Saitama is above Shonen Jump for the most part, said maybe Goku or something. But there are a lot of modern influencers that aren't familiar with the old guard in terms of scaling. So I will give a strong case here for Naruto in a bit more depth than normal. There is a plethora of evidence that Naruto Uzumaki, by the time he obtains his 6 paths divine shinobi powers, has far and beyond the power to destroy a planet. I've outlined this in many videos, as you can see here.
Yeah,
but not only this, but he actually far surpasses that tier by many orders of magnitude, which I'll get into. First, let's establish the first claim. In every single data book entry almost ever concerning the source of Naruto's immense and stated to be borderline immeasurable energy reserves, the Nine Tails, it is stated to have some type of earth-shattering, earth-wiping, or earth-destroying reserves of power.
Yeah, but there's always been, like, that kind of, like, it's a big statement. It's meant to, like, make the Nine Tails sound like it's all powerful. Like, from the very beginning of Naruto, that was, like, the pinnacle of, like, what we knew as power. So it was, like, it made sense to hype it up to that degree. But then, when you go on further on, it's, like, it's basically just saying it can blow up mountains, in my opinion. But again, I'm not the post-gator. I just... something about this video I'm not agreeing with, but we shall continue.
The Naruto...
And I'm a huge Naruto fan. I'm wearing a freaking Naruto hat right now. I have this Naruto like data book that he's just about to show here. I have all the volumes. I love it, but I just can't agree with someone saying that Naruto would win in a fight against Saitama.
Data book is officially licensed and is created alongside Musashi Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto, for being an in-depth guide to the powers and knowledge of the series. I have this problem with many other series, and I am tired of acting like material that is clearly closely worked on and improved by the main author to give background details on the main story doesn't matter because it's not in the manga. Not only do the actual IP owners who determine the canonicity of Naruto determine in this factual data, Kishimoto then goes along with it, works on it, then signs off on it directly. Denying it is usually a cop-out because they can't fathom that the author would actually say things like this. Not only am I going to provide these data statements, but I will then provide the narrative structure of the story itself, feats from the main story, and even statements from alternative sources that all support these data books for naysayers. I'm tired of playing games with this. In Naruto Databook 3, on page 71, it is stated around the start of Naruto Shippuden, when Kurama looks at Sasuke, sealed inside Naruto is a powerful force that can easily turn the world to ash.
Doesn't say easily there in that quote. It just says can turn the world to ash. You see, you're throwing in words here that like make it different. It says can turn the world to ash. He could. Doesn't say easily there though.
This is interesting because this is only half of the Nine Tails. Naruto gets the whole Nine Tails by the end of the series and before Boruto begins. You could say that the Nine Tails would only be someone who could wipe the surface of the planet and maybe all life on it.
Yeah, and because it's not easily. It says can turn the world to ash. Like, how long? How long does it take? What does he have to keep doing? How long before someone stops it?
Which could be true, but I'll support the planet wiping statement. And
I'm going into this in an argumentative time. I had a really thingy shift today at work. Been up since 5 o'clock this morning, and it was just all a nightmare from the beginning. So I feel like being argumentative because I couldn't argue with customers.
More detail later. In Data Book 4, on page 283, it is stated in KCM2, when Naruto has not even mastered his link with Kurama, the Ninetales is actually holding back on the other Bijou monsters like him as to not kill them. When the beast chakra seethes, the earth quivers and the heavens shake. Earth-shattering, destructive power. Then, in V-Jump, during the release of Boruto informational panels, which are similar to supplemental material for other series commonly used, this is stated by Naruto's Kurama avatar and its Bijou bombs. The 7th Hokage who governs the Leaf Village, able to make use of the Kyuubi's chakra at will. He's at a high level and hailed as the strongest shinobi in the world. The Bijou Dama is maximum chakra condensed and released. Its power can even blow up the earth. Some translations say it will blow away the earth as well. These statements are fine on their own, and it's sort of similar to Cell can blow away the solar system. But they are contentious for a certain degree. Why do I interpret them as more literal than metaphorical? This is where it gets into the narrative and the feats of the later story as well as the sequel series that clarifies many things from the ending of Naruto Shippuden and what it was aiming for. I'll dive into the narrative a bit here first and what the point of Naruto becoming so absolutely powerful is for. You'll notice as Naruto goes on during the war arc that he starts to become so powerful with a sliver of the Nine Tails' chakra that a single one of his thousands of clones can pretty much solo some of the strongest guys in history that can even fight other lesser-tailed beasts that can blow away mountains and potentially countries depending on certain calculations.
It's weird that, like, there was a tweet, random tweet, that pointed out that, like, it was a Naruto clone that beat the Edo revived Raikage. But, you know, no, that really means much. Like, the clones seem to just, like... the way I understand the clones working is just, like, the last one left is the real person.
By the time Naruto gets
that's
his
just how it
KCM2
works.
state, or the full access to half of...
I know it's not how it's meant to work, but that's just how it's worked, isn't it? It's not like they've accidentally hit the real Naruto when he's got loads of clones out, you know what I mean? They have just all, like, get blitzed and then they hit the real Naruto, or just... yeah.
Kurama's chakra residing in his body, he can defeat Bijou with no difficulty and can actually empower the entire Shinobi Alliance, consisting of potentially tens of thousands of shinobi to have chakra over even Kakashi Hatake, who some of you may have heard even without watching or reading the series. He is generally considered one of the strongest guys alive at this time, and he actually amplifies and surpasses this whole shinobi world so much that he can protect every single one of the Alliance members against Madara Uchiha and Obito Uchiha, the leaders and puppet masters of the Akatsuki and from the Ten Tails for a long period of time, a being said to be able to destroy and define the world itself. During this, he protects everyone from the Ten Tails, basically spazzing out and yelling so hard it exerts enough energy to rip a continent to shreds. But why? Why does Naruto have to become so much above the rest of the shinobi world? Why do even the villains have to be this strong or at this level either? Why would Kishimoto make the series this intense or this powerful? Well, the reason is because of what the villains are and represent, as well as what they are trying to achieve with their absurdly intense ambitions, with even Naruto being somewhat of a reflection and reformed parallel to this. The villains from the story start to really want to change the world around the time the Pain arc of Naruto begins, and we are introduced to Pain Nagato. His goal is to create super weapons with the Bijou, and then distribute these country-destroying weapons to each nation to create an instability-stability paradox that would almost force democracy through mutual fear of destruction. This is sort of the equivalent of every strong country in our world having nuclear bombs. And due to the intense negatives of getting into a nuclear conflict, we usually resort to other means than direct warfare with powerful nations. But Nagato, being a bit of a pawn to Obito, who was then a bit of a pawn to Madara, and with the two of them wanting to actually shift and control the very world itself and force people to think what they do through illusions, they would project using the power of the very being that created this world to begin with, which is the Divine Tree, or the Ten Tails. Naruto had the power to be a world-ending anomaly as well. If he gave into his despair, the Nine Tails would have given him the power to destroy the world itself. But after redeeming this entity and coming to terms with the hate in himself, he uses this power instead to destroy the world that Madara and the others want to enforce on everyone instead. Later, we are introduced to the person even puppeting Madara, which is Kaguya Otsutsuki. These Otsutsuki are celestial entities that basically dominate and then consume entire worlds for their own power, seeking to obtain enough power to transcend the very dimensionality of the universe itself, as shown with Shibai in the Boruto series.
Right, okay.
Kaguya, in her battle, actually then shows us she has created over half a dozen parallel worlds, and then counting, with planets, stars, and so on, that she can destroy as well with her ultimate technique, the expansive truth-seeking orb, with Naruto reaching Kaguya and Momoshiki levels respectively by the time Boruto comes out, and surpassing them by far by basically being able to amplify his power level by that of nuclear fusion during his fight with Ishiki. Nuclear fusion, some will say, amplifies the power of its parts by potentially over billions of times, which I went over in this video here.
Yeah.
So Naruto, who was destined
video,
to save or destroy the world, had the power to save or destroy it with the Nine Tails, hence the point. But later, he is divinely amped beyond this. And why is that? And is tasked with fixing the order of the cycle of life itself by the Sage of Six Paths against celestial entities literally trying to become higher dimensional gods through absorbing the chakra types that people like Naruto have, which is so intense it starts to bend the very space-time of the planet he inhabits. These Otsutsuki, which nuke parallel worlds on a whim and dimensions with solar systems in it, give more credence to the Nine Tails' intense scaling quotes, as it makes zero sense for the Nine Tails to just be able to blow up a mountain or something, and that's it, while these Otsutsuki beings that are interested in its powers at all can nuke a solar system, even in potentially the lower tiers of their clan being
When do we ever see that, though?
hyper-conservative with their scaling. Naruto surpasses the Ten Tails with his Six Paths form, which is the Nine Tails plus all the other tailed beasts and then some, and can even absorb almost all the natural energy on the planet in his fight against Sasuke Uchiha. I think Naruto even gets much stronger than this realistically in terms of scaling, and I'll get into that later, but for now, let's learn a bit about his opposition, the One Punch Man.
Okay.
Saitama is by far one of the strongest and fastest characters ever seen in manga history. He is a hero that became so strong that everything in life, including fighting monsters, became meaningless. Saitama is so powerful that he struggles to ever find the thrill and excitement towards fighting and being a hero that he once had. When Season 1 of One Punch Man dropped for the first time in late 2015, the comparisons and versus battle matchups began to pop up all over the internet.
Whoa. Who is this? Who is this? 1 second. Let me just go on the old YouTubes here in the background, and then we go on to more here. In this video, I go over Naruto, Uzumaki, put against Saitama, in having requested rematch with Saitama getting against Void, that makes the Cosmic Guard. Oh, it's Noodles. Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Pitting the bald hero against several other legendary names, such as Superman and Goku. The manga itself is literally called One Punch Man, and Saitama tends to live up to that name. Usually without even trying, he is able to practically one-shot every single major and minor enemy that he ever faced in the entirety of the manga. It's to the point that some people believe he is simply an unbeatable gag character, similar to that of Arale from Dragon Ball,
it's always the
Popeye,
example
or
that we
even Bugs
used.
Bunny. There are many people who believe no matter what happens, the narrative of Saitama requires him to one-shot any and all beings that dare stand in front of him, and his power level is simply omnipotent. Or something along those lines. I mean, I
Very,
get why
very
people
powerful.
believe this. I really do. The show is literally called One Punch Man, right? Arguments such as, how can Goku beat Saitama? Saitama is One Punch Man. He can one-punch anyone, are extremely commonplace over forums and YouTube videos to this day. I am here to tell you, though, that I am not one of these people that believes that Saitama has truly reached the level where he can simply one-tap all of fiction, nor do I believe he's even the strongest manga character, let alone diving into some of the comic book realm. I'll go into several reasons why, but for now just know that Saitama during the most serious and intense fight of his life, against the threat level god and master martial artist Awakened Garo, in fact, did not one-shot him. Saitama threw a serious punch at the very beginning of the fight, which was then copied and returned with equal power, stalemating the blow in the very beginning of their fight. Saitama hit Garo several times during this fight, and Garo not only managed to survive, but he actually continually adapted and even became more powerful. This alone proves that Saitama, even when he is serious, and the most powerful he's ever been in the series to that point, is not truly going to one-shot everyone. I feel that this needs to be addressed outright from the beginning, just so we get past the whole idea that Saitama would inherently one-shot someone like Naruto. Saitama does have limits from a versus battle perspective, and because of this, we now need to look at the several feats of strength that Saitama has managed to perform in the manga. In the early chapters of One Punch Man, Saitama fights Marugori, a man who was tricked by his brother into taking a drug which turned him into a 270-meter tall titan that could quite literally one-shot entire cities in singular blows, which was classified as a threat-level demon. After accidentally killing his own brother, Marugori was enraged and jumped onto Saitama, creating an impact over 100 tons, and began throwing countless blows at Saitama, which was then stated in the databook to create a 100-meter crater in the earth. Saitama casually tanked Marugori's blows and one-shot him following this assault. To put in perspective how insane this is, during Pain's assault on the Leaf Village in Part 2 of Naruto, Pain used his now infamous Almighty Push ability to blow up the entire Leaf Village. This was the most insane feat of destruction ever shown on panel at the time.
Yeah, that was absolutely crazy seeing that shit. Just whoa.
So this means that Chapter 1 Saitama already possesses more destructive power than half of the series of Naruto. Like, I just want you guys to think for a minute. What Beefcake was able to do was every bit as terrifying and as much of a threat as the 6 pads of pain were during his attack on the Leaf Village. Saitama was then able to casually dispatch this threat without even trying. Saitama's next major destruction power feat occurs when an absolutely massive extraterrestrial meteor sailed towards City Z, Saitama's home, and of course threatened to wipe out the entire city itself as stated in both the manga and anime. The threat level of this meteor is Dragon, which if we look at the threat level meanings in the manga, threat level Dragon is simply a catastrophe that threatens not only one city, but rather multiple. This is confirmed by Genos in the manga, as City Z along with its surrounding cities will be utterly decimated should the meteor impact the ground. The fact that it could wipe out City Z alone is extremely impressive due to the sheer size of the city itself. During Tatsumaki's fight with Psycho Orochi, Tatsumaki began twisting up City Z with her telekinetic powers. As you can see here, we get a clear shot of how truly massive City Z is. Using some complex mathematical and geometric calculations that I won't delve too deep into here, it is confirmed that City Z is around 441 kilometers long. To put into perspective how massive this would be the equivalent length of many American states in size. Destroying the city in any capacity would yield at bare minimum enough energy to destroy large islands in real life. What's even more insane about this is that saying it's large island level is a massive lowball for what this meteor is actually truly capable of. It's stated in the anime that the meteor elevated from a level 6 to a level 9 on the Torino scale. For those that don't know, the Torino scale is used by NASA to measure the impact effects of satellites coming to the Earth, such as an asteroid or a meteor. For context, the meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs was considered a 10 on the Torino scale, the highest level of impact, and its effects were felt across the entire planet. This meteor was estimated to be around 10 10 to 15 kilometers wide, so it would have been much larger than the 200-meter one in One Punch Man, as stated in the data book. But if we consider the sheer magnitude and level of earthquake a 200-meter ball of rock falling at terminal velocity would generate, it would generate enough energy that it would rival something that could destroy an entire country. Saitama, of course, completely and utterly decimated this meteor with a single shot, fragmenting it all across City Z, saving it and the neighboring cities from complete annihilation. With all of this in mind, this is still not even close to the best destructive feat in Season 1 alone. The first major enemy, or big bad of Season 1, is the dominator of the universe, Boros, who virtually has an identical backstory to Saitama. Boros immediately makes his presence known with his comically huge ship that fired a death beam into City A, completely vaporizing it. Saitama proceeded to board his ship, wreaking havoc, and eventually found his way to Boros after casually murdering some of his strongest warriors. Saitama, when faced against Boros, gets this long exposition about how Boros was bored of fighting on his home planet due to being stronger than everyone around him, much in the same way that Saitama is bored with everything. Unfortunately for Boros, he gets interrupted with a gut shot that sends him flying into a wall and instantly snaps his armor, which was actually restraining Boros' true energy and power. This action would then commence an epic battle where Saitama would get hit with one of Boros' strongest and fastest attacks, the Meteoric Burst, which impacted Saitama so hard that he was sent flying into space and onto the moon. Saitama was still unfazed not only by Boros' attack, but also negated the radiation and vacuum of space simply by holding his breath. Saitama then jumped back to Earth, creating an absolutely massive crater and shockwave that traveled around 1/3 of the moon's surface area. This level of fragmentation was so powerful that it yielded around 15.7 exatons of force, basically the energy needed to level multiple continents. To put this in the perspective of Naruto, this once again casual feat from Saitama is now rivaling some of the in-game bosses of Naruto, such as the Ten Tails Biju, a being in Naruto that was so powerful and devastating that both Kaguya and Hagoromo, and even some of the Otsutsukis later in Boruto, all seek its power out. Not only was this feat impressive in terms of power, but it was also impressive in terms of speed, as the time frame in which Saitama managed to jump back to Earth is around 20 seconds in the anime, where he would have had to have crossed nearly 239,000 miles, which would be about Mach 58,000, or about 6% the speed of light. Boros potentially scales to the speed feat as well, since he sent Saitama to the moon with his attack in the first place. Murata also confirms that Boros launched Saitama at near the speed of light. Boros, after failing to deal any meaningful damage to Saitama, decided to reveal his magnum opus, his ultimate final attack, the collapsing star Roaring Cannon, which was stated to be so powerful that it would blow away both Saitama and the Earth's surface. In the anime, they even state that this attack was going to blast Saitama and the planet itself to hell. So there's potentially even a planetary feat going on here, but for the sake of consistency, if you look at the data book, which states that the collapsing star cannon could shave the Earth, and the manga statement mentioned earlier, I believe that this is easily a multi-continental plus feat, even more impressive than Saitama's moon jump. Saitama, of course, during this attack, powers through it and one-shots Boros, which quite literally split the clouds in the Earth's atmosphere.
Such a cool visual representation of how powerful the punch was. Like, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. One Punch Man.
Statement that I've seen people throw around in the past is the One Punch Man Blu-ray guide, which stated that Boros was going to blow away a star. This is a mistranslation, as the kanji used in the statement is Hoshi, which simply means celestial body, not star. So yeah, I am of the opinion this is probably multi-continental and at best planetary if you use the anime. This is not the end of the planetary showings in One Punch Man, as Saiko Sorochi managed to perform an absolutely insane on-panel feat of destruction when she sliced a massive piece of the Earth's crust with one of her huge laser attacks. As astonishing as this looks, I'm not for sure if this actually is more powerful than the collapsing star cannon, due to the fact that Boros was going to shave the entire Earth, not just a piece of it. But then again, she might have cut deeper into the Earth's crust than Boros would have, so it's kind of up in the air which one is more powerful. Saitama vastly and unsurprisingly outscales both of these characters, mostly due to his fight with Awakened Garo. But outside of the Orochi feat, the only other thing I can think to mention is that when Saitama's house blew up before his fight with Cosmic Garo, he was so pissed off about it that he considered obliterating the entire planet, which I don't believe is an exaggeration in the slightest, considering how terrified Garo was of his Chad.
Yeah, like, I feel like Saitama could just punch the ground and the planet would be gone.
Saitama is clearly a planetary threat as a lowball. Moreover, Saitama's true power would only be revealed in his insane battle with Awakened Garo, but I'll talk more about that. Before I get into this next section, I'm just going to give you guys a brief spoiler warning. Saitama's battle with Awakened Garo has some very major plot points, so if you don't want to be spoiled, here's your chance to skip this part of the video now. Anyway, the first thing I need to discuss is Garo's insane speed feat against Platinum Sperm. Platinum Sperm, Garo, and Flashy Flash actually earlier in this fight created a small constellation with pure movement speed alone. This, albeit impressive, was completely overshadowed and outdone with a similar yet far more impressive feat later in the very same fight. After Flashy Flash was completely overwhelmed and outsped by a full power Garo and Platinum Sperm, those two began accelerating and clashing with each other, creating an even more massive constellation of pure movement. The major difference between this feat and the previous, though, is that this feat actually gave us a time frame in which they managed to create the constellation. Let's just say they managed to perform this insane speed feat in about 1.3 milliseconds.
Damn.
Speed is measured by distance divided by time. So now that we have a time frame, all that's left to do is measure how far they move. So luckily for me, some big nerd on Versus Battle Wiki already did this and calculated literally every individual line on this page and quantified the distance to be somewhere around 1.69 million meters in about 1.3 milliseconds. That is the equivalent of moving around 4.77 times the speed of light. And this is even before Garo got his god powers, so this is not even remotely close to Garo's full speed. As absolutely insane as that is, this is still not even the best feat in this arc. Saitama vs. Awakened Garo is the most bombastic, flashy, and intense battle we've ever seen in the One Punch Man manga. This fight is on some straight Dragon Ball Z Galactic Smackdown levels of epic destruction. Yusuke Murata, the artist of One Punch Man, set a specific goal in mind during the creation of this fight, which was that he specifically intended to make the Boros fight look mundane in comparison to this one. He without a doubt delivered and succeeded in his goal from literally the very first punch thrown. Garo, after being given cosmic powers by God himself, became so powerful that he began passively oozing cosmic radiation, killing many of the strongest S-class heroes. Garo, who lusted for power, wanted to prove he was the strongest, and seeing as Saitama had never gone all out on him in previous fights, he needed a way to drive Saitama to do so. So what he ended up doing was he ripped the core out of Saitama's best friend and apprentice, Genos. Saitama arrived on the battlefield right as Awakened Garo did this, and he became so serious, more serious than we have ever seen him in the entire manga, that Garo would get exactly what he was asking for, as Saitama wasted zero time and began the fight with the most intimidating serious punch I have ever seen. Garo immediately used his now insane adaptation to copy Saitama's serious punch and threw it right back at him with equal power, causing a serious punch squared. Blast, the #1 rank S-class hero, was the only person other than Saitama capable of fighting Garo, and even he was utterly shocked at the level of energy being used in this attack, and claimed that if this energy goes unchecked, it will completely blow the earth to smithereens. Not only this, but Blast states that the energy was actually too great for himself. However, his powerful squad showed up and aided him in redirecting the absurd energy. The aftermath of literally the first exchange between Awakened Garo and Serious Saitama was truly incredible, as a massive hole in space was formed in the distance, showing that several hundreds of thousands and potentially even millions of stars had been destroyed in a singular collision. If you consider the farthest star capable of being seen with the human eye, you would be able to see a star that is around 16,308 light years away. The fact that every star within our perception was just completely wiped out in this massive space hole allows us to calculate the density and volume of stars that should have been perceivable in every parsec of the whole, and then therefore how many stars were destroyed in totality. Around 1,612,815,128 stars should have been in the void prior to impact and annihilation.
And then you think about how big stars are as well. That is just something else.
Even if we lowball what kind of stars that would have been present in this feat, such as the stars the size of our sun, and simply say that Saitama and Garo only destroyed neutron stars, which are about 1/3 the gravitational binding energy of our sun, this feat still comes out to around 2,225 times 10 to the 73rd power joules of energy, or simply multi-galaxy levels of force. As I said before, Saitama and Garo were truly starting to rival many of the feats we've seen in other series, such as Dragon Ball Z, such as when Broly wiped out the South Quadrant. The shockwave of this blast also would have had to have traveled at massively faster than light speeds, calculated around 257 billion times the speed of light, in order to reach that many stars in what appeared to be a couple seconds. Whether or not the shockwave scales to Saitama and Garo's actual physical speed is debatable, but it's still worth mentioning. And what's even more insane about this fight is the fact that Saitama Saitama and Garo were continuously growing faster and stronger. Saitama, due to an upsurge in emotion that he had never felt before, began exponentially increasing his stats at a rate that superseded Cosmic Garo's adaptation by a ridiculous amount. It was then stated that the only character who was capable of perceiving the growth of Saitama was getting left behind. There are also a couple of other lesser but still incredibly insane feats from Saitama during this fight, such as when Saitama used a serious table flip to completely obliterate one of Jupiter's moons and a couple of panels, and then he ping-ponged Garo around the debris, moving at such dumbfounding speeds that he created dozens of massively faster than light after images to blitz Garo, just to prove to him that he can surpass his teleportation with sheer movement. This feat was calqued as Saitama was blitzing around Jupiter's moon. The method used simply measured the distance Saitama bounced around the fragments of the moon, which is around 9 million meters, and used a time frame of about 1 second. Due to the sheer speed of Garo and Saitama, 1 second is realistically a massive lowball. The result comes out to Saitama's sheer combat and movement speed being anywhere from around a couple thousand times the speed of light all the way up to 3,344,753,589 times the speed of light. And as I said before, this is a low ball considering that Saitama is constantly getting faster and stronger. It is truly unbelievable how far Saitama has come, but I haven't even revealed the highest level interpretation of Saitama's power yet. Saitama during his fight with Garo was actually stated to be infinitely strong. I know that's a pretty insane statement, but there are actually a few ways of interpreting it, but I actually don't think it's that far of a stretch given some of the statements we have seen in the most recent chapters of One Punch Man. Okay. That being said, it could be the case that Garo is stating Saitama is infinitely strong because of his seemingly unending ability to adapt and become more powerful. This is a valid interpretation, but I believe it's also valid to say that Garo could straight up be right about Saitama having truly infinite power due to a few factors. First and foremost, Garo is outright stated and shown to have the energy of the entire cosmos and universe flowing within him. This was at the very beginning of the fight before Saitama began rapidly increasing his power level. Saitama not only surpassed Garo in every conceivable way, but he also even held back against Garo to prove a point. Saitama directly told Garo that he only needed one hand to beat him, and he was right. By the end of the fight, Garo was getting smacked around so bad that he straight up admitted that Saitama was leaving him behind and he would inevitably die by one of his punches. Saitama decided to chase Garo through his space-time portal and used a massively faster than light fart to catch up to Garo mid-teleportation.
Just ridiculous.
It is at this point that we get what is possibly the most insane statement and feat in the entire manga to this point. Garo's monstrous and evil mentality suddenly shifted when he noticed that Terrio, the boy he had come to appreciate and care for, lie dead on the ground due to cosmic radiation. Garo's despair made him realize that he had caused Saitama the exact same emotion. Due to that, he decided to teach Saitama the ultimate martial art that not even he could master. He believed that Saitama was the only person capable of achieving power greater than God. Saitama then used a similar copying or adaptation ability to copy Garo's move. Then God himself intervened and tried to take back his power from Garo before it was too late. However, Saitama managed to instantly copy Garo's power and threw a punch that created particles and anti-particles that began reverberating back and forth through time, creating a punch that could defy causality itself. Saitama was able to throw a punch that made time flow backwards to the beginning of the Awakened Garo fight.
Like, how does Naruto fight this? Like, is this where we're going? Like, Noodle's gonna build all this up, and then Steph's going to come in and be like, but then I just don't see it happening. I don't see it happening.
One-shot him before it ever began. This punch could easily be argued to be a measurable speed due to the fact that Saitama's sheer physicality is capable of punching you in negative seconds or before a fight even begins.
Before it even happens, yeah.
Saitama defeated Garo in 0 punches, which of course defies the laws of cause and effect. There are counters to this position, such as if Saitama would use this punch in character or if the activation itself is immeasurable, but I still think it's valid to say that when Saitama does activate this ability, he uses immeasurable speed.
It's ridiculous.
The final statements I have to talk about surround God's power and Saitama's potential. Firstly, Garo was empowered by God, who has been stated in recent chapters to be a being that both has energy and power that extends beyond the universe and comes from a higher dimensional plane, along with the fact that it is stated to transcend energy, space, and even distance itself. The reason this is impressive is because going beyond all of space and time and being higher dimensional inherently entails that you would mathematically have power beyond infinitely larger than what you can achieve in 3 dimensions. Think of dimensions in space itself. A dimension is simply length, width, or depth. If I have an object that has length and width, it would be a plane such as a square. If I have a 3D object with length, width, and depth, it would now be something more like a cube or sphere. Now I want you to picture in your head how many 2-dimensional squares could you stack on top of one another to reach a 3-dimensional cube. The answer is that no amount of squares with length and width will ever achieve depth. The reason for this is that a square has 0 or no depth, and 0 times infinity is still 0. So this means that in order to achieve a dimensional transcendence, you would have to achieve a property that is identical to the previous, yet beyond infinitely larger and non-interactable. I believe this gives credence to the fact that Gaara was given a universal flow of energy, and considering Saitama overpowered him and was stated by Gaara to be capable of surpassing God, I would not be surprised if Saitama in the very near future was able to swap hands with higher dimensional and multiversal level threats. In fact, the current big threat in the manga, Empty Void, is already showing such signs due to existing outside of the multiverse, which contains infinite parallel dimensions folded into small bubbles that he is able to casually interact and affect. Empty Void also conjures his energy from this higher dimensional plane, which was even stated to be a hyperspace, or simply a space that has more than 3 dimensions. People throw around these terms pretty casually, but in all honesty, the statements surrounding God are textbook higher dimensional, due to the fact that his energy is stated to transcend or go beyond space itself, which includes the infinite parallel dimensions that are present in the multiverse. And not only this, they literally show a tesseract on screen, which is literally the most common representation of a 4-dimensional object. This tier is called Complex Multiversal, or simply Multiversal Plus.
I need to pee. Okay. Oh my god, my legs. Let's do this.
This being said, Saitama is yet to scale to God, nor do we even remotely understand the full potential and capabilities of God when he is unsealed. Only time will tell how much stronger Saitama can become in the future, but at the moment I can confidently say he is lowball large planetary to multi-galaxy, and highball universal or infinite in power. In terms of speed, he is massively faster than light on the low end to immeasurable speed on the high end, all things considered.
How is Naruto doing this? How is Naruto beating this?
Saitama is an extraordinarily powerful protagonist who is also reaching power levels at a rate not seen since Dragon Ball and the Big Three. While this insane tier of power may make you believe that this fight is pointless to analyze and that Saitama should just slam Naruto, there are actually many characters and feats and statements of similar magnitudes in Naruto that are worth comparing to One Punch Man.
Like who?
After hearing the feats from Saitama, you may think this debate is just over, but there are actually many equivocal feats and narratives in Naruto that can be interpreted to be on the same level of power. For example, Kaguya's dimensions are commonly referred to as sekais, or worlds, and the world itself could mean anything from a society to a planet or even a universe. This is important to put into context because we know for a fact that Kaguya's dimensions do not have societies and are bigger than planets. So, the terminology society and planet do not inherently apply to the usage of words in this context. It's important to break down interpretations here because there simply is no reason to say that Kaguya caps off at being able to blow up a planet, considering even an entity like the partial Ten Tails had chakra so massive it was rivaling the Earth's in possible sheer energy. And a being who can vaporize the planet, such as the Nine Tails, and Naruto can sense most of the entire planet as well, such as when he senses the entire Ninja War in Sage Mode, couldn't even see an end to its energy when he tried to sense it. This Ten Tails was not comparable to even perfect Jubito, let alone Madara or Kaguya. To say Kaguya was only creating a planet is similar. Even the action of vaporizing a planet to all the space and time to its orbiting moon would require enough energy to actually destroy a star in most lines of calculation, let alone just a sekai, quote-unquote. The action of even destroying and resetting time-space is also an absurd feat in itself. Think of the Kamui that Kakashi launches throughout his entire series and can theoretically stop anyone or anything, or even how Hollow Purple and Jujutsu Kaisen sort of blast through whatever it hits unless they have some crazy ways to survive it or counter it. These attacks rip and shred through the very space that the immensely powerful fighters that face them have to sit upon to even function to begin with. Their very durable mass and energy that resides in space is rendered almost utterly useless. And here's Kaguya doing it on the scale of an entire time-space that is much larger than even a planet. We can deduce that these time spaces possesses heat and a beating light source, likely a star within them, and in the video games it straight up possesses a form of galactic nebula. This is important because, as I foreshadowed, we need to get into the very nature of what Kaguya even is as an entity, just like how I explained why the Ninetales being able to destroy the planet is consistent with the save or destroy everything narrative Naruto possesses. Kaguya, too, needs to be much, much above this due to her nature in the story, and even in just flat stated lore. The clan Kaguya hails from, the celestial beings from deep space and other dimensions that plant seeds of the tree that made all of existence onto planets to drain and then divine them of their energy for their own enlightenment and ascension. That being said, the destruction, conquering, and absorption of the planet and its data is not the end goal, nor is every entity linearly absorbing one planet's worth of energy at a time till they ascend the confines of their being. The end goal of an Otsutsuki would be best and most properly displayed in Shibai, the only named god thus far who has completed his task of ascension out of the handful of their clan we have seen. This trickster known as Shibai has dimensionally transcended the realm he exists in and can utterly rewrite the entire universe and control it to his whims like a story, making anybody who even looks at his discarded corpse be manipulated, fall in love, and have all attacks immediately reflected upon them as he does whatever he wants with reality that he is no longer bound to. He has many similar statements to the god of One Punch Man, with all of the Otsutsuki trying their absolute best to achieve this same state of enlightenment. Kaguya's enlightenment could sort of be seen by the type of cyclical nature she bound the world within, samsara, or the six paths, shown by the Renegon, which is literally translated as Samsara Eye.
Okay.
Ishiki then, a higher Otsutsuki that even Momoshiki couldn't imagine the very people who beat him and Kaguya defeating, then has the Dharma Wheel Eye, or the next step closer to full enlightenment. Therefore, we really need to scrutinize ourselves. If Shibai is the end goal and these beings are on their way to reaching these levels and interacting with the shell of the guy who just ascended, how far along is everyone else realistically? We also know that even Naruto was warping the very space-time of the entire planet far beyond its normal, and that even controlling a natural lightning bolt with chakra allows you to face beings who can possibly vaporize countries. So Kaguya and Momoshiki in particular and on screen being shown absorbing many planets and eating another Otsutsuki who likely has as well, is then stated to have created isekai or parallel universes or dimensions in the original novelization. Kaguya's ability to create massive dimensions and space-times would...
I've not read these things, so I can't really comment, so it's still really jarring and difficult to, accept.
As we described in the Saitama portion, still potentially infinitesimal compared to Shibai's transcendence. Even if she made multiple universe-sized dimensions of either finite or infinite size. It gets to the point where if Kaguya and Ishiki aren't even a single % of their way to Shibai after consuming multiple planets of life, that it reaches an absurdity of us asking how many planets of life are even in this universe or others to even absorb. How long would it actually take? It is never considered an endless task, despite the endless amounts of power they would receive. And Otsutsukis will dedicate decades to centuries to just one planet at a time, depending on their personality. The verge of ascension and data downloads to the next tier is foreshadowed with many mutations and abilities that Kaguya and the others unlock on their journey. For instance, Hagoromo, the son of Kaguya, learns the creation of all things, where he can create matter and existence out of nothing and has the power of all creation in many of his attacks, including even truth-seeking orbs, something attributed even today theologically as something only God can realistically do, as it breaks some foundational laws of science and some forms of logic. This is Hagoromo encroaching on the ability to make his own realities, which Kaguya, the progenitor of his data, does by making her own time spaces, and Shibai, the ultimate extension, being able to manipulate any reality at will as a pseudo-omnipotent entity to his onlookers. To further enforce that Kaguya's dimensions are incredibly vast and different, take Naruto in his sixth path state with his immense sensing capabilities as an example. Naruto and Six Paths could sense Madara's limbo clones that only existed in an alternate plane of existence attacking him. Yet he
Alright, fair enough.
could not sense Six Paths Sasuke, his linked other half, in one of Kaguya's dimensions. Even Obito Uchiha, who spams a dimension warping ability, practically shits himself while amped by Sakura to even wrap his head around how utterly absurd the size of Kaguya's one singular dimension even is, let alone the fact that there is a root dimension and they are all connected in a strange Kaguya microcosm of dimensions. I suppose in essence what I'm trying to get at is that the larger interpretation of the statements isn't realistically less accurate by any means, as the narrative is about celestial transcendence of all the concepts that bind the universe in what it is to begin with, and how those that endure these entities and concepts, like the shinobi, fight against the principalities that seek to control them and throw them into perpetual cycles of violence. This is also why the Naruto series seems to go about magical ninja and strategies to strange demonic warfare by the later half of the series. And the actual mission of the shinobi is changing to something more profound and foundational. The foundation to what caused all of the personalized conflicts to begin with and makes it repeat over and over for all eternity. Hence the entire purpose of Madara Uchiha's mission, as well as Naruto's final one when he faces Sasuke.
Do you feel like there's some points being thrown in that is just, like, to make everything sound a little bit more grandiose than it needs to be? I feel like this video could have been shorter. But it is sponsored, so they obviously wanted to go all out for the algorithm, which I get it. Go grab that money. Like I said, I feel like Seth's going to have like 6 videos this month. It doesn't upload hardly ever, and then it's December. Which is fine. And this is entertaining. This has been a fun video. Like I've not talked a lot because I'm trying to take it in. Like, why Naruto can't win this. And I'm still not quite grasping it.
With both sides now covered and all major feats and statements considered, the only part we have to talk about now is who actually wins. If we assume both Saitama and Naruto are in character and simply battling until one of them falls unconscious or perishes during the fight, there are several interesting arguments to dissect in order to determine who will come out alive in this galactic smackdown. Saitama, as we know, has some pretty insane, massively faster-than-light feats, such as crossing entire solar systems in mere moments or destroying hundreds of billions of stars with a sheer shockwave of pure energy. Additionally, it's pretty hard to attribute any similar feats like that to Naruto due to the fact that the only times where we see Naruto or Sasuke, or even the Otsutsukis travel into faraway spaces is through the usage of time-space teleportation ninjutsu, which doesn't require physical movement speed at all. It is simply a hacks or a type of special ability that they use to allow them to travel to faraway spaces, much like Awaken Garo's hyperspace gates. This being said, I think it's pretty safe to say that Saitama has more impressive speed feats and showings that would dictate he would be capable of blitzing and tagging Naruto before he would be able to react. However, there are major problems with this argument. Saitama almost never speed blitzes immediately in character, and quite literally does the opposite most of the time. If you go back and look at Saitama's fight with Carnage Kabuto, he begins the fight standing still and just lets Carnage Kabuto charge him
takes it
with a barrage of attacks. In Saitama's fight with Boros, he once again just lets Boros utilize tons of attacks in his arsenal before he finally finished him off with a serious punch. Even after using his serious punch, Boros directly states that Saitama was still holding back. In Saitama's initial fight with Monster Garo, Saitama literally just tries to convince Garo to change his ways, while Garo just teed off on him and threw all sorts of martial arts combinations his way. And once again, Saitama just lets himself get hit. Even during the Cosmic Garo fight, which I will admit was one of the few times we ever saw Saitama begin a fight blitzing, he still self-admittedly held back. And this was not the very beginning of the fight to begin with. This was later into the battle against Garo, but with more power-ups involved. Now, like I just said, it is possible for Saitama to blitz his adversary right off the bat. He does it a couple times in the series, such as when he fights Elder Centipede or when he fights Cosmic Garo, as mentioned before, but the problem is both of those situations have context that will not be present during his battle with Naruto. For example, Cosmic Garo intentionally wanted to drive Saitama to full power, so he eliminated Genos right in front of him in order to get literally the strongest emotional reaction
out of him straight away,
seen in the series. Naruto simply is just not going to do that. He's a good person. The Elder Centipede example is also explained away because Saitama was frustrated about losing to King in a video game 81 times in a row, and he also needed to minimize collateral damage to the city, but this is a specific scenario that likely won't be present in his battle with Naruto either. I would also argue that Elder Centipede is a massive outlier when it comes to Saitama's battle style, and he was literally just fed up and wanted to go about his day. If you go through and read every fight Saitama has had throughout the series, the entire narrative depicts the fact that Saitama as an individual is so strong that he is bored with fighting, and that's exactly why he always holds back, because he never feels the excitement or need to give it his all. So what this means is that if Saitama is capable of blitzing Naruto, it is actually probably the case that he would choose not to, and he would let Naruto land his jutsu on him, which is potentially a fatal flaw. Saitama would probably be much more interested in drawing out Naruto's techniques than the likes of, say, Elder Centipede, because he is many orders of magnitude greater than him. He would make Elder Centipede look infinitesimal in comparison, and even Boros would come off as a jobber in comparison to Naruto. In terms of power, Saitama at his strongest is around multi-galaxy and with a bit of length universal. This is actually inferior to Naruto's highball scaling, as Naruto is stronger than Kaguya, who created and was able to destroy multi-dimensional spaces that are likely universal or infinite in span. This means that Naruto actually should be physically able to damage Saitama should he connect with one of his strongest attacks on him, such as adult Naruto's Ninetales avatar, or even Sage of Six Paths Naruto's Truth-Seeking Orbs. This is supported in the V-Jump Boruto data page section, which has the majestic attire Susanoo as the utmost strongest jutsu in the entire franchise before Ishiki's arrival. In fact, it is described as almost godlike in comparison to anything else. During the battle with Ishiki and even Jigen, it is heavily implied that Naruto cannot fathom a way to beat him, yet Baryon Mode, which Naruto can use solo, is literally stated to be stronger than Ishiki. This helps us scale above the immense destructive power of Kaguya's Truth-Seeking Orbs due to the fact that Ishiki is literally the strongest character in the entire series at that point, and also the fact that Naruto and Sasuke's majestic attire Susanoo was stated to be the strongest jutsu in existence at the time, so both of those statements would put him above the multi-dimensional scaling Kaguya.
War Arc Sage of Six Paths Naruto also has several abilities in ninjutsu that are able to affect and probably even finish Saitama should they land and we give Naruto his full arsenal. The most obvious ability being the Truth-Seeking Orbs, which are ninjutsu that are composed of every single element in Naruto and contain the foundational properties of all time, space, and the universe within them. These orbs directly erase even immortal Edo Tensei bodies, which are able to regenerate from all physical attacks.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yes,
The
they are
likely
something
reason the
else.
Truth-Seeking Orbs are able to do this is because they not only erase you on a physical level, but a spiritual level as well. This is shown when Minato, who had his arms erased by the Truth-Seeking Orbs during his fights with Ten Tails, Obito, and Madara, was unable to regenerate his arms, and it was shown even in his spirit state that his arms were still completely destroyed after he was recalled to the Pure
Damn,
Lands
that's a
as
good
his Edo
example of it,
Tensei
yeah.
was released. The Truth-Seeking Orbs are also stated to be the exact same thing as Kaguya's Eternal or Expansive Truth-Seeking Orb, which was going to completely turn entire space-times into nothing, which is direct proof that Truth-Seeking Orbs have complete existence erasure. This is a problem for Saitama because even though he is able to affect Phoenix Man's spirit realm in the manga, this feat does not prove he can resist having his mind, body, and soul erased by a Truth-Seeking Orb. KCM1 Naruto was also able to pull on his own soul, which is about the same level of spirit manipulation Saitama has shown, yet Tobirama warned Naruto directly during the fight with Jubito prior to his Sage of Six Paths power. Should any of them get hit by a Truth-Seeking Orb, they would get erased. It's also implied that Tobirama and some other shinobi like Dan have types of soul manipulation. So unfortunately for Saitama, he simply lacks the feats to show he could adapt or resist an attack like this, because it's not simply a physical thing that he would need to resist. It's far more fundamental and completely bypasses his durability to begin with, as these attacks are more so attacking the foundation that allows Saitama's being to even exist, rather than just his being directly. Naruto also has sealing jutsu such as the magnet-style Rasengan and or Rasen Shuriken, which could also potentially work on Saitama, as he has displayed no feats of resisting sealing type attacks in the entire One Punch Man manga as well. The only flaw to this is if you think Saitama is stronger, that if the seal is not strong enough, it couldn't bind someone of his level. There are possible genjutsu arguments if you go by the Naruto filler, such as the Three Tails Mist genjutsu that
Excuse me.
Naruto would have in all honesty, but this genjutsu is weird. It's sort of about being consistent with yourself and do you know yourself to break out of type of genjutsu, then say, can you break out of this universe in your brain type genjutsu. Saitama also deals with sidekicks such as Tatsumaki, and Naruto doesn't ever seem to use this genjutsu in character, nor be a genjutsu type fighter.
No,
Naruto also
not
possesses
at all.
regeneration.
No, Naruto's more like physical, upfront, just like go for it kind of fighter. There's no way he would use like genjutsu, illusion stuff. Like, just don't see him. Even if he had it in his arsenal, I just don't see him like thinking of it, because he's a capable fighter, but he would never. No.
However, his regeneration is not really too much of a factor. We've seen in his fight against Sasuke in part 1 that he's able to regenerate a lung. However, certain attacks will put him down for good. He's not going to regenerate like, say, Majin Buu or something like that, or even Ten Tails Madara for that matter. So to put everything into context, Naruto's powers, being very strict, are capable of exerting enough energy to match those that can destroy planets or solar systems in scale, and faster than light, whereas Saitama's strict range is casually nuking large planets to multiple galaxies in power with massively faster than light speed. So if we go with this interpretation, Saitama would be victorious if he blitzed Naruto immediately in all likelihood.
Right.
However, if he just lets Naruto hit him with a true-seeking orb or something, which is a very real possibility that he may allow in character, he would literally just lose, as anticlimactic as that sounds. If we consider the higher ends of how their lore can be interpreted, Saitama lands around being able to blow away multiple galaxies.
So it just depends on how serious this fight starts and who hits who first.
To facing universe-surpassing threats, whereas Naruto would be scaling to and above a multi-dimensional, multi-universal, or multiversal alien, so he legitimately would be potentially more powerful and more hacks, but he still is lacking in terms of speed. Saitama, if we take him out of character, could hypothetically dodge all of Naruto's attacks due to the speed disparity, and eventually overwhelm him with his adaptation, or outlast Naruto until he is weak enough to one-shot him. In terms of hacks, the only ability Saitama has that potentially could one-shot Naruto, considering the higher scaling if you grant that to Naruto, is the Time Punch. The Time Punch is an acausal punch that can travel back
Just
in time after
ridiculous.
rewinding the universe by creating his own particles that he can reverberate throughout time, and it's possible that Saitama could use it in a way where he would punch Naruto as a child or before he became powerful enough to contend with Sage's Six Paths tier characters. Or even when he is less on guard, say at the very start of their fight, before he goes Six Paths. A good example is Naruto and Kurama both not expecting Himawari to smoke him in one hit in the Hokage special, with them both getting one shot by a child. If he did something like this, I could see a reality where Saitama would win, but there's a lot of issues with this argument, specifically surrounding the in-character traits of Saitama and the limitations of the Time Punch. I don't think there is a lot of proof to suggest Saitama can punch, say, years or months back in time, because he only punched a few minutes or even seconds into the past after his fight with Garo, and he was only even willing to use the Time Punch because Garo convinced him he should try to, which Saitama hesitantly and begrudgingly agreed to. The biggest problem with this battle is honestly Saitama's narrative and mentality itself when it comes to fights. Because he never sees anyone as a challenge and is always bored during fights, there's a good chance he wouldn't worry about using something like the Time Punch or worry about even Naruto landing one of his stronger ninjutsu on him. So Naruto actually has a very real chance to kill or seal Saitama if we were taking them in character. Out of character, I see a much better argument for Saitama winning, mostly due to his superior speed and unending adaptation and stamina. All things considered, though, Naruto is probably walking out the win via a True-Seeking Orb. To argue in Saitama's favor, as a closing note, you could argue that God in One Punch Man is an objectively higher dimensional being, with honestly stronger arguments for it than even Shibai from Naruto. Considering Naruto is far inferior to Shibai's literal dead corpse, let alone his transcended omnipotent form, and Saitama will, let's be real for a moment, is going to probably one-punch God somehow. Saitama in the future will undoubtedly be the objective winner one day without any type of contention or argument, but based on what we know now, it may unironically be far more contentious than you might initially think. That being said, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for Noodles for joining.
Too many long words there. You tried to make it seem very intellectual. I
If you're more
still,
interested
even after that, I still feel like Saitama
in
wins.
some stuff he has to say, you can check him out in the description. And other than that, until next time.
In the most recent chapters of One Punch Man, we have been introduced to possibly the most powerful villain in the entire series, Empty Void. Empty Void is so strong that he's able to fly outside of the entire multiverse, outside of space and time, and view the infinite multiverse and possibilities of the multiverse as dimensions that he can fold like bubbles and strike from at any given moment. This technique is called the Dimension Slash, and he's able to execute this from a higher dimensional plane. This is also stated by Blast to be one of God's powers and higher dimensional in terms of space, energy, and distance. This would mean that he has higher dimensional power and also has the capacity to move outside of the confines of time and space. And in the latest chapter, Saitama was able to block the Dimension Slash.
That is just insane.
Effortlessly with 2 fingers. That's right, Saitama is officially a measurable speed in 4D powered. There's a couple other statements that support this
So, yeah, oh my god, it's just, yeah.
as well, such as Empty Void when
Saitama's got
he
it.
says that this technique comes from hyperspace, which verbatim means a space of more than 3 dimensions. It's also stated in the chapter 206 cover that it transcends dimensions. So yeah, there's pretty much no doubt in my mind that Empty Void is using a 4th dimensional attack, and Saitama was casually able to block it. And as I said previously, this would scale to his speed as well.
So, left that out until the end casually, but no, Saitama's got it. I'm sorry, even after watching that, like, just, I was zoning out so much, because I was just like, don't seem to make sense. But always fun to check out a Seth video. And Swag Kage's got an uploaded a video. Been a while. So, hopefully, tomorrow, we'll be checking that out. That'll be fun. And there's other things. 6 have got a load of videos. And then, do you know what? It'd be fun for Clyde to throw something in the mix really cool, really recently. Like, within this space now. And then we've got Clyde, 6, Swag Kage, and Seth all like, bam, for videos. But yeah, thanks for watching.
Click like and subscribe.